I still remember sitting in a bar when my phone lit up with her name. Weeks of silence. Then boom, there it was. The same woman who had walked away like I was disposable suddenly wanted to check in. I didn't reply. Not because I was playing games. Not because I was trying to manipulate her. But because in that moment I finally understood something most men never do. Silence isn't about punishment. It's not about making her miss you. It's about rediscovering the man she thought she could replace. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to turn no contact into the kind of power that doesn't beg chase or need validation. Because she didn't expect you to disappear. She expected you to wait. Let's change that. Here's the brutal truth no one tells you. When she walked away, she didn't think you had the spine to let her go. She thought you'd stew in your feelings. Wait for her to come back. She thought you'd keep orbiting her, liking her posts, watching her stories. Because deep down she believed you still saw her as the prize. And maybe you did at first. But no contact. Real no contact. Not just ignoring texts, but cutting emotional umbilical cords. That's something else. It's a declaration. Not to her, but to yourself. A declaration that you no longer want crumbs. That you refuse to carry dead weight. That her absence is no longer a wound, it's a window. That's when the tables turn. Because women don't chase silence. They chase the man who found peace in silence. The more you disappear, the more she hears you. Not through texts or calls, but through the loud echo of your absence. And if she ever does reach out again, it's never when you want it. It's when you've already changed. When she no longer has power. The truth, most men never make it to that stage. They break no contact just before the transformation. Right when they were about to shift from emotional dependence to emotional dominance. You feel it, the urge to reach out, to just check in, to just get closure. But closure is a fantasy. What you're really looking for is reassurance, proof that she still thinks about you, proof that you mattered. Let me ask you this. Why does her recognition matter more than your self-respect? You can't hold power and beg for closure at the same time. Power is found in detachment, and detachment isn't passive. It's a war you win every day. You wake up and you don't check her status. You don't wonder what she's doing. You build, you train, you grow, because she thought you'd wait. But now she has to watch you rise. And here's the twist. The moment you stop trying to make her regret leaving, that's when she starts to. Not because you posted a gym pic, not because you updated your status, but because your energy shifted. You're not the same man who needed her. You're not even the same man she left. You've become someone else, someone quieter, stronger, unbothered, and that silence. It's not just lack of communication, it's signal. It tells her without saying a word, I've already moved past the version of myself that tolerated you. Women feel that in their bones. They start replaying old memories. They second-guess their decision. They stalk your presence without liking your posts. Because now, you're unpredictable. And nothing drives a woman crazier than a man she can no longer read. You used to be transparent. She knew exactly how you'd respond. She could push buttons, test boundaries, and you'd flinch. But now, she texts, and you don't reply. She posts, and you don't watch. She hints, and you don't chase. It's not coldness, it's evolution. She thought she had time. She thought you'd still be there broken waiting for her to realize your worth. But no contact wasn't about hurting her. It was about healing you. And now that you've tasted what it means to live without needing her validation, you don't ever want to go back. Because that man, the one who waited, he's gone. And in his place, a man who values himself so deeply, he no longer needs to be chosen to feel worthy. There's something you realize when the fog clears. It wasn't just her that had power over you. It was your own illusion. You were addicted to her potential, the version of her you created in your head. The someday version where she sees your value, apologizes, comes back humbled. But she never existed. That's the harsh part of no contact. It strips away fantasy. It leaves you with facts. And the fact is, she walked away. Maybe she didn't say it, but she made her choice. And your silence. It finally let her live with it. See, most men stay loud. They over-explain, they defend, they plead. They write long messages trying to prove they were the good guy. But the real ones, the men who transform, they go quiet. Because silence is clarity. Silence is dignity. Silence says, I don't need to argue with someone who didn't see me clearly the first time, and that kind of silence terrifies her. Not because you're angry, not because you're bitter, but because she can feel it. You're not waiting anymore. You're not refreshing your inbox. You're not checking who views your stories. You're not trying to get back what was never aligned to begin with. You've stepped out of the game, and that's when everything shifts. She thought you'd pause your life, put your purpose on hold, watch her live hers while you sat in emotional purgatory, but instead, you became more dangerous than ever. Not dangerous in aggression, dangerous in detachment. You're no longer reactive. You're centered, you're focused, and that focus, that's what starts to haunt her, because now she has to confront the reality she never expected. You're not circling back. You're not falling apart. You're building something and she's not part of it. She'll try to send smoke signals. A song posted that reminds her of you. A message that says, hey, just thinking about you. A random emoji, no context, just enough to bait curiosity. And this is where most men fail. They break. They think this is the moment. She's realized. It's happening. But it's not happening. She hasn't changed. She's just uncomfortable with your silence. And so she pokes. She prods. She wants to know, do I still have access? Don't confuse access with intention. She might want to know you still care. But that doesn't mean she's ready to match your energy. It doesn't mean she's done playing games. But this is where most men go wrong. They confuse self-respect with revenge. They want her to suffer, to regret, to feel what they felt. But that's not self-respect. That's still about her, still reacting, still performing, still proving. Revenge is loud. It wants attention. Self-respect is silent. It wants nothing. You're not rising so she sees it. You're rising because you finally remember who you are. And that remembering has nothing to do with her. You don't level up to punish. You level up because staying the same became unbearable. She's not your motivation anymore. Your peace is. And if she ever sees what she lost, that's just a byproduct of you no longer needing to be seen. You need to remember something brutal. Just because she reaches out doesn't mean she's ready to rise with you. Sometimes she just wants to make sure you haven't risen too far without her. And that's your test. Not to reject her with ego. Not to respond with spite. But to honor the man you've become. If you reply from emptiness, from needing her to see you, you collapse your power. But if you reply or don't from centered awareness, from peace, you maintain the gravity you've earned. Because no contact was never about silence. It was about space to become someone new. And that man doesn't go backwards. She thought you'd wait. But what she never calculated was that your waiting would evolve into something she couldn't control. Something that made her irrelevant to your growth. You didn't just stop talking. You started walking. Toward discipline, toward purpose, toward men you respect, and challenges that demand your attention. And here's the truth. She feels it. She might not admit it. She might never say the words. But she knows. She knows you're not watching her anymore. She knows your world no longer orbits hers. And that quiet distance, it's louder than any argument you ever had. She thought she had forever to figure it out. But men like you don't wait forever. You rebuild, you reforge, you become. And now, you're not hers to lose. You're your own to keep. You know what changes everything, that moment when you stop needing her to understand. You let go of trying to prove your worth. You stop hoping she'll come back with an apology. You don't look for signs or symbols or subtweets. You just let her go. Fully. Finally. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Because holding on is exhausting. Waiting is heavy. And deep down, you know you were never meant to be someone's backup plan. That's the hidden poison in the waiting game. It tricks you into thinking you're being strong, being patient, being noble. But what you're really doing is delaying your transformation. Waiting for her to come back is like sitting in a prison cell with the door wide open, hoping the warden changes her mind. No contact was never meant to be a strategy to win her back. It was the beginning of your escape. The longer you sit in silence, the more you hear your own voice. The more you realize how much you lost yourself chasing someone who never saw the full version of you. And maybe you didn't even know who that version was either. Until now. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. You start to remember who you were before her, before the begging, before the confusion, before the late-night overthinking and soul-draining doubt. You remember the man who didn't wait, the man who acted, the man who had fire, not fear, in his chest. And from that silence, he rises. Look, here's the part nobody tells you. You're not healing to get her back. You're healing to never settle again. Because once you've tasted your own power, real grounded, quiet power, you'll never beg for crumbs. You'll never chase someone who treats your presence like it's disposable. She thought you'd wait because that's what most men do. They say no contact, but they watch every story. They say I'm done, but they're still hoping for a text. They build the outer frame of confidence, but inside they're still broken. But you did something different. You used that silence as fuel. You looked in the mirror and told the truth. I let her take too much of me. That ends now. And then you started stacking wins, small ones, getting up early, hitting the gym even when you didn't feel like it, reading, building, grinding. Piece by piece, your identity came back online. Not as the man she knew, but as the man she never got the chance to meet. The one who values peace over attention, standards over loneliness, respect over reunion. And that man? He doesn't care if she ever texts again, because he doesn't need her to remember him. He knows who he is now, and that's enough. There's one more thing. Eventually she'll feel it. Not in a loud way, not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet moments, when she's alone, when the new attention fades, when the games stop working, when the men she chose instead don't bring the depth you had even when you were struggling. That's when she'll think of you. Not as the guy who waited, but as the man who vanished and became untouchable. She'll remember your silence. Not the kind that came from pain, but the kind that came from peace. And it'll sting. Because that's the paradox. The moment you stop wanting her to regret losing you is when she finally does. But by then, you'll have already walked too far to look back. There's a different kind of power in the man who doesn't flinch. Not cold, not fake, not performative, just steady. The kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself. It just walks into a room and everything slows down. That's who you become when you stop waiting, when you stop chasing, when you stop caring whether she sees your glow up or not. Because here's the real secret. The transformation that breaks her isn't loud. It's not in the flex posts or stage stories or subtle jabs. It's in the fact that she no longer recognizes you. She used to know exactly how to read you. She knew how to get a reaction, how to lure you back in, how to press the right buttons. But now you're unreadable. You don't take the bait. You don't react. You don't give her a second of mental real estate. She feels it when you're not watching. She notices it when you're not reacting. She hears your silence louder than she ever heard your words. And the truth is, she doesn't know what to do with it. Because for the first time, she's the one waiting. Waiting to feel that old power over you again. Waiting to see if she still has a hold on your emotions. Waiting for a response that will never come. And when that moment hits her, when she realizes she's not in control anymore, that's when regret starts to crawl under her skin. But this isn't about revenge. It never was. You didn't level up to prove something to her. You didn't go silent to make her suffer. You didn't rebuild just to throw it in her face. You did it because your peace finally mattered more than her presence. You did it because staying stuck in emotional limbo became more painful than walking alone. You did it because you had no choice. At some point, every man hits a wall. A line that says, if I keep doing what I've been doing, I'll never become who I was meant to be. And she was on the other side of that line. So you stopped crossing it. You stopped checking in. You stopped keeping the door open just in case. And when you did that, something cracked inside her. Because women can feel when the door is truly shut. When a man has burned the blueprint she used to navigate his heart. And when she realizes that it's too late, you don't get her back by waiting. You don't make her regret it by chasing. You don't shift the power by reacting. You rise. And if one day she circles back, you won't need to rehearse what to say. You won't need to ask if she's changed. You won't need to dig for closure. Because you won't be the same man anymore. You won't need her. And that alone will say everything. She thought you'd wait. But no contact wasn't the pause in your story. It was the start of a new chapter. And in that chapter, she doesn't get to be the main character anymore. You do. You don't get her back by waiting. You get her back by never needing her again.